Yo, what is up guys, Grim here. So in today's video, I really wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm doing in the game and what I'm moving towards next. But as well as that, I wanted to tackle a long debate between Bisco's collar and a shaped amulet. I want to tell you guys which one I think is better because I get asked all the time on the Discord. And I think it's a really cool discussion and one that you guys are really going to enjoy. In addition to that, I wanted to throw in a little bit of a tip here of what I discovered about Magic Find, and I'm kind of going in a new direction with my characters in terms of making money very quickly. So, Biscos versus Shaped. I've got a bit of a pros and cons list here, and I really wanted to talk in general about the two amulets. So to start off with, if you don't know, Bisco's collar will give you a massive increased quantity of items dropped by normal enemies, which are the white enemies. They don't have any colored border on them, and the ones that you're going to mostly encounter in most of your maps, I'd say about 80% of the map's monsters are normal or white enemies. So it's fairly exclusive, but it's very powerful. The other amulet is just straight up 10% increased item quantity, which is very good. So on average, people have done the maths and they say Bisco's is worth about 12.25% increased quantity if you average it out and look at the whole map, and they say the other amulet is just 10%, obviously. However, I don't think that's really a very fair assumption of Bisco's versus Shaped. There's a lot of factors which I think play into this, and I think that that's a bit of guesswork, just to say the least. So, let's get into the comparison. Obviously, Bisco's will affect more monsters in the map. There's more white monsters in general over the other monsters. However, in general, they do yield less loot, and we'll get to that in a second. But just in general, Bisco's is going to be having more of an effect on more of the monsters in the map. However, the Shaped Amulet is going to have a effect on higher yield monsters. So this is going to be able to affect blue monsters, rare monsters or yellow monsters, and unique monsters, which is a very important one here at the end. So it's going to be able to affect the monsters, which will be giving you a lot more currency, but there's less of them. And that's pretty cool, and that's actually very important for later. So while white monsters are more plentiful, I've noticed they generally yield about 0 items per white monster to 1. So I've had a lot of packs which will give me like 1 or 2 items, even though there's like 10 monsters in there. So, and that's with full magic find. So a lot of the time, just white monsters don't drop anything, or when they do drop stuff, they'll drop 1 item. I don't generally see like killing a white pack as like you kill it and you get a ton of loot drops. That just doesn't happen even in groups. Generally, at best, you're going to have like 10 or 12 items from a pack of like 10 monsters, from what I've seen. However, that could just be me. Maybe other people are getting a ton of loot from their white packs. In general, though, not so much. That doesn't mean that they can't drop valuable items. It just means they have a lower chance to drop pretty much anything, and that's kind of just going to be the gist of it. Rare, unique, and magic monsters, on the other hand, when I do my maps, I do notice them drop a significant amount of loot. Like, I'm talking a lot, especially with stuff like map bosses and the null portals, which we'll get to in a little second. But basically, this is going to be affecting the monsters that drop a high amount of items. So it's a higher yield. So when you look at it, this does have 5% the amount of magic find, but this affects monsters which just drop so much more. So that's kind of the battle here that's been waging on, and I think that we've got a clear winner now after this patch. There's been a big change to something in the game which really tips the scales in one of their favor. So just to begin with, the Bisco's collar, when you're mapping at the highest level, will gain a lot of benefit from sextants. So when you're applying sextants, you're going to be applying sextants like the map contains additional poisonous monsters or chaos monsters, something like that, and a lot of those monsters are going to be white. So Bisco's is going to get a big benefit from that and give you a lot more loot. However, the same rule of what we just talked about still applies. You're not going to get that much loot from those white monsters in general, and you're not going to notice too much dropping from them on average. On the other hand, though, the Shaped Amulet does also gain a lot from those added mob sextants, due to the fact that a lot of those added mobs can be rare magic, and that's pretty good, right? So, but it also gains a lot from a lot of other sources. So if you're doing a beyond map or a double beyond map, or just in general you're beyonding a lot of your maps, maybe you're running Varwinds or something like that, and you're trying to juice up that item quantity from the unique monsters, the Shaped Amulet crushes Biscos. So when you're killing the unique Beyond monsters or bosses, they drop a lot of loot. If you've done them, or if you've killed something like a Baxos, you'll know he drops about 30 items, and that's just crazy. So if you compare it to something like the White Pack, one unique monster almost drops as much as like, oh, what do I said here? Probably, I would say at least 4 or 6 white packs on average a lot of the time. White packs don't drop that much loot, and stuff like Beyond bosses drops a ton of loot. So you can kind of start to see which one's going to edge out which one. Especially when you consider the fact that when you're doing Varwinds, a lot of the 6 links and 6 sockets drop from the Beyond bosses. So increasing like the quantity of those actually will go a long way. So that's kind of going to be the idea. Multiplying something that gives you 0 to 1 by 100% is only going to give you, like, let's say 1 to 2. If you multiply something that gives you like 30 items base on, in theory, I know it doesn't work this way, you're going to get something like 60. That's just something just to keep in mind, just really simply, obviously without all the crazy maths and diminishing returns and map rolls and stuff that goes on in PoE. If you think of it that way, it's pretty simple and a kind of a no-brainer. Both of them get doubled, but when you have so many more unique monsters and rare monsters in the map, which drop a ton of loot, it's better to multiply the higher yield ones than the lower ones. So that's kind of my thinking on that. There's a few more things here I want to talk about. So yes, it gains a lot from Beyond, but it also gains a lot from Influence. Bisco's gains a little bit from Influence, but I think that the Shaped Amulet gains a whole lot more. So when you're adding Elder Influence in, which is the predominant one, you're going to get stuff like Null Portals. And Null Portals, for starters, they spit out a bunch of monsters, a lot of which are rare. And you're also going to be able to kill the Null Portal, which is counted as unique. And Null Portals drop a ton of items. Again, I'd say it's about 20 to 25 items per Null Portal, just from what I've seen. A lot of the time they just drop tons of stuff. It's like you can get lots of currency, a lot of just rare items, so you can get shaped items and elder items and stuff like that. So all of that is going to be multiplied by the Shaped Amulet and not by Bisco's, which is really, really important. I'll go over a few more things here. So Abysses prioritize blue and rare monsters over white monsters. So when they're spitting out mobs for you to kill, a lot of them are going to be blue and rare over white, which is really important and cool. The map boss is not multiplied by Bisco's where it is on the Shaped Amulet. And then finally, the big heavy hitter, which is a big change this patch, is rare bestiary monsters. So those are the ones with the yellow, like little yellow icon on your map. Those have been buffed significantly. They drop at least 1 or 2 times the amount of a map boss now, from what I've seen. So those are not going to be multiplied by Biscos, while they are going to be by the Shaped Amulet, and that is massive. So you're basically getting like mobs in your map which drop like a truckload of loot. They almost feel like super ghosts. Like it feels like a ghosted up enemy when you kill it. So you know how you kill the map boss and it's ghosted sometimes and it drops like just tons of loot? That's what every rare yellow beast feels like now. And if you're not wearing a Shaped Amulet, you're missing out on multiplying that. So that's where I think that the Shaped Amulet really comes in and just delivers the knockout punch to Biscos. I'm actually going to be selling my Biscos after this video, for this very reason. After I've seen the patch, I now really confidently do feel that the amulet, the Shaped Amulet, is better. So in terms of price, they're about the same, but there's a really big cheat kind of way to get a very good item quantity necklace right now over the Biscos, which will be able to get it for like 10 chaos basically, and I'll go into that after we talk about the next set of items when we head over to PoE Trade. So the next kind of set of items is a little bit of a bonus inclusion to this video. So normally, you'll know me, I like Venter's Gamble rings. They've got a ton of resists on them, they've got a lot of nice increased quantity on them, and a bit of life, which is really, really nice. I've always rolled with Venter's Gambles, I've always thought they were the best, but this patch I've kind of had a little bit more like spare time and kind of thoughtfulness this patch, so I decided to look into some other alternatives. And the other high-end alternative to Venter's Gamble is the Pariah. So the Pariah is an item which basically has nothing else going for it apart from the fact that it has 15% increased item quantity per white socket it has on it. So it's an unset ring. So each unset ring has a white socket on it. A socket on it, as you can see here, and you can corrupt it. And one of the outcomes of corrupting it is for the socket to go white. So to get pariahs with white sockets to actually get the increased item quantity roll, what you'll need to do is either find ones that already have a white socket on them, or you'll have to buy ones which are uncorrupted, corrupt them, and then hope to make sure the socket goes white, as opposed to one of the other outcomes. So I bought my pariahs for about 2 exalts each a couple of days ago, and I bought them with the white socket on them because I get wrecked by RNG on the daily, so it's not great for me. So obviously when we're comparing these two, you'll notice that each pariah ring has 15% increased item quantity. So you're probably thinking that that's not a big difference between Venter's Gamble and it, but basically to even start to compare them, you need absolutely perfect quantity roll Venter's Gambles to even come close to the pariah, which immediately is actually pretty difficult. To be able to get ones with not negative resists, some okay life on them, and the increased quantity roll you need is very difficult. It's not easy by any means, and you're going to be spending multiple exalts. We're talking up to like 5 here on getting ones which have good resists on them and stuff like that. So immediately the pariah is kind of a more consistent option. You're always going to be able to get the same pariahs for like less than a really good rolled Venters, and that's really good. The other really big factor here is that the pariah will give you 15% increased quantity per white socket over the 10% at the pure maximum for Venters. So it's definitely a lot more increased item quantity, and when we're trying to get as much increased item quantity as we can, really juice everything we can of our character, an extra 10% over 2 rings is insane. It's basically like having the option to wear 3 Venter's Gambles instead of just 2 pariah rings. So that's really, really good, and that's my reasoning for swapping over to pariah. I'm full on pariah supporter now. I think that they're definitely the best, and it's actually not too hard to sort out what you lose, which is a lot of the time for Venters, you lose a lot of resistances. So if you can cap out your resistances from other means, it's actually way better to use the pariah in basically every single situation over Venter's Gambles. So the resistance capping issue is really, it's a bit of a tough one for a lot of builds. Probably the hardest it is for is Windripper, because Windripper has to use Sedemas. It doesn't get resists on its best helmet, and really it doesn't get resists anywhere else either. So by dropping these Venter's Gambles, you do lose a lot of resists, but obviously you get that magic find on the other end of it. So it's kind of annoying to have to lose those resists, but if you look at our Shaped Amulet, when we're not using Bisco's, which has no stats on it, we can use our Shaped Amulet here. And now we have a bit more room to play with. We can get resists on our Shaped Amulet, and we can also get that a little bit of the life that we lost by giving up our Venters on the Amulet as well. So by swapping from Bisco's to the Amulet, we can kind of make up for what we lost. And that's what I've done, and that's what really pushed me to realize that Pariah is better than Venters. So with everything on, you can actually get resist caps fairly easily. Overall, your resist will be lower, your life will be lower, and your damage will probably be lower because you need to take some damage off in other places to make up for the resist you just lost. But your item quantity will be higher by 10%. Overall, which is a big deal. That's almost as much as the Wind Ripper bow, just straight up, which is really crazy. So the Pariah is very good. There's actually another benefit to the Pariah, which is also very relevant and important, and that is that you get 2 gem sockets here to do with whatever you want. They do also have +2 levels, so if you're running Grace, I'd highly recommend putting your Grace in one of these, which I'm actually going to do right now because I haven't done that right now. Wherever my Grace is, there we go, put that in there. And that's going to allow you to gain more evasion from your auras because they're now +2 levels. So I go from having a 21 Grace to having a level 23 Grace, which as you can see here is a lot more evasion. It's about 300 evasion, which I just gained for free, which is about as much as I have on my helmet, or half of what I have on my helmet actually. So that's a big deal, and it's pretty cool. So Pariah plus Shaped Amulet combo is great. I reckon it's way better than the Biscos and the Venters. I'm going to be going with that every single league start now. I'm going to be getting Pariahs instead of Venters. There's going to be no situation where I get Venters now. I'm always going to be going for Pariahs, and then if Bestiary sticks around, and just in general, I think I'm always going to go for a Shaped Amulet as well, and I'm going to get into why that is as well. So in general, the Shaped Amulet kind of is better in my opinion. And I was a bit of a doofus though, and I crafted an actual Shaped Amulet. I don't think this is the best course of action, and what I do think you guys should do is actually go over to PoE Trade, and instead of buying a Shaped Amulet for 5 or 6 exalts and then spending another 2 exalts multi-modding it and crafting yourself, and then more on top of the alterations, what you want to look for is I believe it's called Spine Fuse Talisman, which is a tier 3 talisman which can have a implicit of 10% increased item quantity at its maximum. So let's go over here, put in quantity. What are we looking for? We're looking for I think it's yeah, it's just an implicit, I think, here. And we'll look for 9%. And we can look up some talismans. So as we can see here, we can get a quantity item. We'll go for a 10% one actually, just to show you guys what the comparison is here. So a perfect rolled shaped amulet is 10% increased quantity, and it has to be item level 85, and it'll set you back about 8 exalts to craft that yourself. If we come over here though, we can see that we can get a 10% quantity amulet for 20 chaos, which is pretty crazy. Some of these go up 2 exalts, 1.5 exalts, and stuff like that. But it's very affordable if you get what I mean. So you can just strap on one of these for 20 chaos and basically have something that in my opinion is superior to a Bisco's a lot of the time. Save yourself some exalts, and you can actually get some nice resistances on these as well, which really makes up for the fact that you're now using the pariahs instead of everything else. Look, like you can see over here, this is better than my Shaped Amulet by far. It crushes my Shaped Amulet. It's got 44% cold and 13% element to all elemental resistances. So that's really crazy. Just right there, that is actually probably going to make up for at least one Venter's worth of resistances, because that has, what is that, 57% cold and then 13 of each of other ones. That one's really crazy. One Exalt as well. That is a bargain. An absolute steal. Like you can keep going though, and you can pay more and more and more, and get better and better ones, of course. But wow, that is actually that's a super cheap one that I just went past there. But you get the idea. So these talismans are dirt cheap. They drop off the bestiary recipe, which is very, very easy to get to and attainable. So if bestiary stays in the game, these talismans are going to be around basically as for the foreseeable future all the way into the distance. So these are going to be basically a very cheap alternative to Bisco's. You can try and spin the wheel yourself and get one of the talismans yourself by going to the menagerie and doing the recipe. But I'd recommend just buying it for like 20 chaos to an exalt for an okay one, and you'll be doing pretty good. So here's the recipe here. So it's just 2 of any rare wolves from I think any location it seems, and another rare canine and a beast from the wild. So that is an insanely easy recipe to do. Like, I mean, that's crazy actually. The only hard part are the wolves, which you can probably just farm and target farm from a certain map or place in anywhere. So really, really crazy stuff, and that's really interesting that you can get it for so cheap now. Wish I had known that or had someone to tell me that. So that's kind of going to be the comparison. I think pariahs plus a spine fused talisman or shaped amulet, if you're a moneybags, is the best option now. So I kind of wanted to just finish this video off with a little bit of what I'm coming up with and doing next. So I am currently working on a bit of a bestiary spreadsheet here with all of the best recipes and kind of what you can do with all of the beasts and what they're worth and stuff like that. So that's going to be coming up in a video, and I'm going to talk about how I like to use the bestiary league to make money, because I've made quite a few exalts so far of capturing beasts and just in general, just, you know, all that good stuff. You can also expect my loot filter guide stuff coming up probably this weekend. A bit of delays in that department, but you guys should have my loot filter to download and play around with pretty much and update it every day as well, relatively soon. I'll keep you posted on that. And then finally, since I'm pretty much done with Wind Ripper, apart from a +1 bow and a quiver with +1 on it, I am going towards now very quickly gearing up my boss killer, which will be a Starforge. Let's see if we can get a gear here. A Starforge Slayer with around 10k life and somewhere in the ballpark of 5,000 to 8,000 regeneration per second through Leech. I'm going to be going for Uber Elder, and I plan on knocking out all of the challenges. I'm going to go for 40 out of 40 this league. It's going to involve me playing a lot of Pokemon and catching a lot of beasts, but that's going to be really fun. Just another little quick note I've noticed about making money lately. It might be its own video, but what you want to do right now is just put every single spare slot you have and fill it up with an enlightened gem with as much quality on it as you can manage, and then just when you're mapping, level those up while you're mapping. A level 4 enlightened, which you can get after getting it to level 3 and then varling it, is worth around 5.5 exalts. So if you're leveling up like 15 enlightens at once and they all level up to 3 and then you varl them all and you get 3 or 4, that's 15 to 20 exalts right there, which are just in your bank account, and you can pretty consistently get that amount. I varled 3 gems this morning and got 2 level 4 enlightens and 1 level 3. The level 3 sell for about 40 chaos as well, so you're not going to have any trouble selling those. So that's really good. I do want to go on the record and say I made an auto bomber and I tried it, and oof, yeah, I wasn't too much of a fan of that. Props to everyone who does like it, but you won't see any auto bomber videos out of me. I was going to make a full-on kind of in-depth like rundown of it, but I really did not enjoy it when I got on there. I tried playing in some high maps, that wasn't great, and then I went back down to the low maps, and I really didn't enjoy it there either. And the reason for that is when you're just starting out. By the way, I invested 30 exalts into this character, so I didn't spend no like small amount either. When you're starting out in maps, you're gonna have a lot of trouble if you don't have a lot of crit multi-jewels and just in general level 21 heralds and stuff like that. And then when you do finally get going, you need to rely heavily on Ash's Mirror to be your source of damage and the fact that you critical strike. When you get to a rare beast, I've talked to other auto bomber players as well, it feels really bad if you don't have any Ash's Mirror stacks or Headhunter buffs and you get to a rare monster and you just can't kill it. That's why what really made me put down the build, the fact that it really has a lot of trouble with bosses and rare monsters and stuff like that if you don't have those Ash's Mirror stacks. Obviously, if you're a fast-paced player and you're very good at moving around the maps and stuff like that, with shield charge, you can get a lot of Ash's Mirror stacks very quickly and then one-shot those rare monsters, which can be quite good, but it just wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy it. So I'm going to be sticking with Wind Ripper and stuff like EK. Maybe I'll look into Spark later on in the league as well. I like direct damage builds. Actually, I might do Wander as well. I've heard Wander is quite good, so that's what you can expect from me. So that's kind of going to be the video, guys. Lots of site updates in the works and coming up. Now that I've kind of done a lot of what I wanted to do and I just have Uberelder and the challenges left to do in this league, I'm going to be starting to do a lot of kind of experiments and stuff like that, posting a lot more to the website and a lot of more updates. And you guys are going to see a lot of progression coming forward from kind of what I have in my other projects, not just my characters in PoE. So you guys have that to look forward to. Thanks for watching and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.